Well, guys, the third episode of Ms.Marvel is officially here. We are now past the halfway point, or we're right there in the middle technically, because the next episode officially puts us into the final rundown of what exactly is going on. More revelations and things will be coming at us, but that doesn't mean that this episode wasn't loaded with them as well. So let's talk about everything we saw going on here. So right as we get into this, let me just mention the audio commentary, which will be out later today for all the members of the channel. Hopefully you guys check that out on the Avenger tier. And there's going to be a lot to talk about, specifically how it relates to everything in this episode in terms of the Inhuman factor. But before we get there, let's talk about what exactly this episode is about. And it's really about who are you and self-discovery. And that's one thing that I've really liked about the series so far, and all three episodes have a heavy emphasis and push on this. Now, the episode actually starts with a pretty big revelation. This involves the Kree, because we see a dead blue Kree alien, and that's where we found out the bangle comes from. And we found out that the clandestine, aka the people that Kamala was saved by in the last episode, are all here just waiting for somebody that can bring them home. And they believe it's Kamala because she is able to activate the bracelet. This also relates to her grandmother, who was able to do the same thing. And we even get a flashback, that's how the episode starts, that reveals that that Kree, in particular the one we were seeing, actually died in a fortress that looked to be occupied, or at least at some point built, by the Ten Rings and the Mandarin. So a nice little tie-in there to everything. And we learned that the clandestine are in fact really desperately trying to get home. They hate it here. They just want to get back to wherever they're from. And it's during the course of them talking about what exactly is going on here and who the clandestine might be, aka how it relates to the Jinn, that we get a little bit from the father and Bruno, as Bruno is trying to look into everything that has to do with the Jinn. And essentially, we get more hints here that these characters are off-world. They are not supposed to be here, and that maybe that they were even imprisoned on Earth as a punishment. So again, they're very loosely playing around with a lot of concepts in this episode that are saying, oh, Inhuman, just without saying the title Inhuman. So that's very interesting to me, and I'm interested to see how this is going to further play out. Now, where things get really interesting in this episode is towards the end, where we have a giant, let's just call it Kamala on the run, trying to use her powers because her brother's wedding gets crashed by the clandestine, and then Damage Control, who's been in pursuit of, well, anybody with powers. And things really come to a head, and we see Kamala really getting more comfortable with her powers and everything that's going on. And that honestly turns into a pretty epic little scene there we get with Kamala just being more comfortable with everything, and really just kind of, teasing what's at hand here. A little hint towards Cameron becoming the character from the comics and everything. Overall, there's a lot that happens in this episode. They're definitely teasing the mystery and reveals and what's going to be happening next. And I just cannot wait to see what direction they take it in, because this is definitely building some interesting history and lore into the MCU that we haven't heard of or seen up until now.